Have you ever felt like your entire world was crumbling around you? Until one moment gave you the strength to rebuild it on your own terms. This is my story. My name is Mia, and at 33 years old, I discovered that losing everything wasn't the end, it was the beginning of finding myself. I grew up in a privileged household where success was measured by wealth and status. My parents were entrepreneurs who built a thriving business empire, and as their only child, I was expected to carry on their legacy. From a young age, I learned to play the part of the perfect daughter, polished, poised, and always striving for perfection. But beneath the surface, I carried a deep sense of inadequacy, constantly questioning whether I was enough. When I met Ryan, I thought I had found someone who truly understood me. He was kind, supportive, and seemed genuinely invested in building a future together. We fell in love quickly, and within 3 years, we were married and living what appeared to be the perfect life. Ryan worked in finance, while I managed the family business, juggling responsibilities and trying to balance my personal ambitions with the expectations placed upon me. At first, everything felt harmonious. We supported each other's dreams, celebrated milestones, and promised to always have each other's backs. But as the years passed, cracks began to show in our relationship. Ryan's ambition often crossed ethical lines, and his decisions sometimes put our family at risk. I tried to intervene, to remind him of the values we once shared, but he dismissed my concerns. "Mia," he'd say with a condescending smile, "you worry too much. Let me handle it." His words stung, but I told myself he knew best. After all, he was the one everyone trusted. Then, one day, everything changed. Ryan died suddenly in a car accident, leaving me devastated. In the weeks that followed, I struggled to process my grief. Friends and family tried to comfort me, but nothing could fill the void he left behind. It wasn't until I began sorting through his belongings that I uncovered the truth, a truth that shattered everything I thought I knew about him. While going through his office, I found a hidden safe behind a framed photo of us on our wedding day. Inside, there were documents, bank statements, and a passport with a name I didn't recognize. My hands trembled as I opened the passport to find a picture of Ryan, but under a different identity. The name on the passport belonged to someone else entirely. Confused and heartbroken, I dug deeper, uncovering evidence that Ryan had been leading a double life. He had secretly married another woman years ago and maintained a second family, complete with children who had no idea about my existence. The bank statements revealed large sums of money being transferred to accounts in her name, money that should have been ours. It was as if the life we had shared was nothing more than a facade, a carefully constructed lie designed to deceive me. For days, I couldn't function. I felt like I had been robbed not just of my husband, but of my dignity, my trust, and the life I thought we had built together. How could he do this to me? To us? The betrayal cut deeper than any pain I had ever known. But as the initial shock wore off, anger began to take its place. I realized that Ryan had stolen more than my heart, he had stolen my future. Determined to uncover the full extent of his deception, I hired a private investigator. What they found was even worse than I imagined. Ryan hadn't just lied about his second marriage. He had also embezzled money from the family business, laundering it through offshore accounts to fund his double life. His actions had put countless people's jobs and livelihoods at risk. And now, after his death, the company was facing bankruptcy. I knew I had to act. While I couldn't undo the damage Ryan had caused, I could use the resources he left behind to make things right for myself and for others. I sold the house and liquidated his assets, using the money to repay the company and support the employees who had been affected by his crimes. It wasn't easy. There were legal battles, public scrutiny, and moments when I doubted my ability to carry the weight of his mistakes. But I refused to let his lies define me. With the remaining funds, I founded a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping women who had been victims of financial abuse. I called it Rise Again, a name that reflected my journey of healing and transformation. Through the organization, I provided resources, counseling, and legal assistance to women navigating similar situations. I also launched educational programs to teach financial literacy and empower women to protect themselves from exploitation. One of the women I helped was Emily, a single mother whose ex-husband had drained their joint savings account, leaving her and her children homeless. When she came to us, she was broken and hopeless, unsure of how to rebuild her life. Together, we worked to secure housing, file legal claims against her ex-husband, and create a plan for financial independence. Watching her regain her confidence and take control of her future reminded me of my own journey and the strength I had discovered within myself. Another woman, Rachel, shared a story eerily similar to mine. Her husband had also led a double life, maintaining a secret family while pretending to be devoted to her. When she learned the truth, she felt like her world had collapsed. But through Rise Again, she found a community of women who understood her pain and offered support. Together, we helped her navigate the legal system, recover her stolen assets, and start anew. As the organization grew, so did my sense of purpose. I realized that Ryan's betrayal, while devastating, had given me a gift: the opportunity to help others heal and rebuild their lives. By turning my pain into action, I was able to honor the parts of my relationship with Ryan that mattered most. The lessons I learned about resilience, forgiveness, and the importance of standing up for what's right. But building Rise Again wasn't without its challenges. There were moments when I questioned whether I was strong enough to carry the weight of so many stories, so much pain. There were times when the memories of Ryan's lies threatened to overwhelm me, pulling me back into the darkness. But I reminded myself of why I started this journey: to create a better future, not just for myself, but for others. Through the women I met, I discovered something profound. Healing isn't a linear process. It's messy, unpredictable, and often painful. But it's also transformative. By sharing our stories, supporting one another, and taking steps toward change, we can reclaim our power and rewrite our narratives. That realization became the foundation of Rise Again, not just as an organization, but as a movement. As the months turned into years, Rise Again expanded beyond what I ever imagined. We opened shelters for women fleeing abusive relationships, partnered with legal aid clinics to provide free services, and launched workshops on financial independence and self-empowerment. I traveled across the country, speaking at conferences, and sharing my story to inspire others. Each speech, each workshop, each interaction reminded me of why I started this journey and the impact we could have together. But perhaps the most meaningful part of my work was the connections I formed with the women I helped. They weren't just beneficiaries of Rise Again, they became my sisters, my confidants, my source of strength. Their stories taught me that pain, no matter how deep, can be transformed into purpose. One woman, Maria, stood out in particular. She had been trapped in an emotionally abusive marriage for over 2 decades, convinced that she was unworthy of love or independence. When she first came to us, she barely spoke, her eyes filled with fear and shame. Slowly, through therapy and support, She began to open up. She learned to manage her finances, found a job she loved, and eventually moved into her own apartment. The day she handed me a thank you card, tears streaming down her face, I realized that Rise Again wasn't just changing lives, it was saving them. Of course, there were setbacks along the way. Not every story had a happy ending. Some women returned to abusive partners, unable to break free from the cycle of violence. Others struggled to rebuild their lives, overwhelmed by the weight of their circumstances. Each loss weighed heavily on me, reminding me of the fragility of human resilience. But even in those moments of despair, I held on to hope. Hope that our work was making a difference, even if it wasn't always visible. Hope that every woman who walked through our doors would leave stronger than when she arrived. Looking back, I realized that Ryan didn't just leave me a legacy of pain, he gave me the tools to transform it into something meaningful. His secrets forced me to confront truths I might otherwise have avoided, pushing me to grow in ways I never imagined. And while I'll never fully understand why he chose to live the way he did, I've come to accept that his choices don't define me. Instead, they've shaped me into the person I am today, stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to make a difference. Through Rise Again, I've learned that power isn't about control or revenge, it's about creating opportunities for others to thrive. It's about using your pain to fuel positive change, to lift others up when they feel like they can't stand on their own. And it's about recognizing that, no matter how broken you feel, you have the ability to rebuild not just your life, but the lives of those around you. If you're watching this and feeling betrayed, remember, your pain doesn't have to define you. You have the power to turn it into purpose, to create something beautiful out of something broken. If this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe for more inspiring stories.